That's really what I'm interested in.
Okay. Well, I think everybody probably knows me and everybody probably knows you, but you want to tell everyone who you are for those in our recorded audience who don't know you.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. There's a book entitled The Road Less Traveled, and that probably is a good title for my life because it has spanned quite a few different disciplines over the years. I'm a CPA by background, spent 3 years with a national firm, quickly discerned that audits and taxes were not going to be my life's work. Went into corporate and in controllership and CFO positions in a variety of industries for 17 years. Lost political battle at the last job I had and found a situation that lent itself to independent contractor arrangement. Started providing part-time CFO services for small to mid-sized businesses and did that for 21 years. As part of that, I did a lot of work with pricing. And in September of 2009, had the good fortune to have a book, Pricing for Profit, published by AMACOM, a division of the American Management Association. And when I started speaking to promote the book, I got a lot more interest in that than I ever did in CFO services, and I rebranded my company to Pricing. Did that for 6 years, and two things happened during that time period. One is that every pricing client that I had said exactly the same thing. They said the clarity they'd gotten about who their ideal customer was, what it was they valued, and how much they valued it, gave them the confidence they needed to hold firm in their pricing. And they were having more fun doing business because they felt more in control. At the same time that was going on, I had over half a dozen people say to me, I want your life. And I was like, what? It's the right one for me. I structured it the way I wanted it to be for me, but I never considered it enviable. So when I challenged them on that, they would say, well, I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it like you do. Or I want to be able to take advantage of opportunities and not worry about the consequences the way you do. Or I want to take off more time and travel and not worry about the money. So what they were telling me is they wanted to be free of fear, anxiety, and frustration, which got me to thinking, well, how did I get here? And interestingly, I found that it was confidence. So I did a little 15-minute program on confidence for a group called E for E, Experts for Entrepreneurs. And afterwards, over half the audience came up and said, you need to write a book on this because we do not look at life and confidence the way you do. And so that brings me to where I am currently, which is teaching confidence. And I've written a trilogy of books on that topic.
And for a long time, I carried those around with me everywhere I went.
Well, thank you.
So I was just listening to something about confidence, and it was interesting to me that they indicated that doing a good job, doing whatever it is you're doing, whether it's sweeping the floors, whether it's, striving to make $1 bazillion, if you're doing that to your best ability, that builds your confidence. Are there certain elements that you feel that people could and should do that build confidence, or how do we build our confidence, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, yeah, part of the answer to that question is which level of confidence are you talking about? Because there are 3 levels of confidence. On the first level, you learn to be consistently confident, even when you don't have any background or experience. And so in essence, what you do is you retrain your mind to focus on the things that enable you to be confident in unfamiliar situations. And, one of the common misconceptions about confidence is that it's a trait. And it's not. It's a skill that can be learned and taught. And so we can learn how to become more confident, and we can teach others how to be more confident as well. Now, at the second level of confidence, we've already learned to train our minds. Now we train them to overcome 6 natural tendencies that we all possess by virtue of our humanity. And these are things that I have to pay attention to every day, just like everybody else. Okay, so just knowing it isn't enough. You have to continue to practice it as well. But at that level of confidence, you retrain your mind out of these natural tendencies, and you, in essence, train your mind to look at things differently. And when people accomplish this, what they hear from others is, you look at the world differently than other people do. You don't think like other people do. You see things other people don't see, and yet what you say makes perfect sense. So when you get recognized for seeing things that other people aren't seeing, then two things happen. One is they seek your counsel, which gives you a tremendous amount of influence. And the second thing it does is it increases the number of opportunities available to you, because people want you involved in their initiatives. Who wouldn't want somebody that's seeing things that they're not involved in what they're doing, right? So you create a lot of opportunities. And the seventh step in that second level program is learning how to evaluate opportunities, because they do come at you so quickly that it's difficult to decide which to pursue and which to forgo. And then the third level of confidence, we retrain our brains once again, and this time we train it to consciously tap into the power of our subconscious mind. The neuroscientists have demonstrated that the conscious mind operates at somewhere in the vicinity of 30 to 60 bits per second. That's the computer equivalent rate, 30 to 60 bits per second, depending upon the complexity of the task. The subconscious mind operates at 10 to 12 million bits per second. Tremendous amount of computing power, and nobody's teaching us how to tap into it. And that's what you learn in the third level of confidence, is how to become confident and how to trust, in essence, your subconscious mind, how to know that it's always going to provide what you need when you need it. Okay.
So how do we tap into our subconscious mind?
Really, we all do it. We're just not conscious that we're doing it. You know, one of the examples that I use in my programs that helps illustrate this, because we've all had this experience. We've been wrestling with a problem all day long, and we go to bed at night wondering, how in the world am I going to solve this? Next morning in the shower, boom, the answer hits you just like that, right? We've all had that. Well, what in essence happened was that when you went to bed wondering, how can I solve this problem? You, in essence, assigned the task to your subconscious mind. And while you were asleep, it worked on it. And the next time that your mind was free, which is typically in the shower, it hits. And then we move forward with it. Now, the good news is we don't have to wait for bedtime. We can do this consciously anytime of the day or night. And to give you an example of how I used it, this was a couple of years ago. It was a Saturday morning, and I was working on some marketing material for a new program that I had. And one of my good friends sent me an email and said, I'm getting ready to start a mastermind group. I don't like the term mastermind. I thought I'd tap into a contrarian thinker and see if he might have a suggestion for me. And I thought about it for a few seconds, didn't come up with anything. So I sent him an email back saying, I've assigned it to my subconscious. I'll let you know when I get an answer. And I went back to working on my marketing materials. And I finished about an hour later. And when I did, one of the dogs came up to the door wanting out. And the time it took me to walk from my office to let the dog out, it hit me, boom. Got back to my desk, sent him an email, said, how about this? And he goes, man, your subconscious works faster than mine. Well, it doesn't really. What was happening was my mind was free. I wasn't involved in any conscious task at the time, because your subconscious will not interrupt your conscious mind. Okay, but my mind wasn't involved in any particular task. It wasn't that narrowly focused. So, the answer came. He was still involved in something where there was an intense focus with his conscious effort. Now, one of the ways that I encourage people to learn to trust their subconscious, and this is what I did, because when I first learned of this, I thought, man, that's cool, but I don't know if I can just make the transition, you know? So what I did is I set my alarm clock. And then in my subconscious mind, before I went to bed, I said, I want to wake up 5 minutes before the alarm goes off. And each morning for 3 mornings in a row, I woke up 5 to 7 minutes before my alarm went off. I thought, works, you know, so it's been over 3 decades now that I've stopped using an alarm clock. I just make the mental note when I want to get up. If I want to watch a program at a certain time in the evening, that's an hour or more off, I'll grab a book and get into my easy chair and make a mental note. I want to watch this program at such and such a time. And somewhere along the line, as I'm reading, a thought pops in my head. It's like, it must be time for that program. So I get up and look, and sure enough, it's just a few minutes before. So once you do that with enough frequency, then you learn to trust your subconscious for all sorts of things. Now, one of the mistakes that gets made with the subconscious mind, excuse me a minute, it's made with subconscious mind is that too many of the questions we ask are if questions. So an opportunity presents itself, say, gee, I wonder if I have the talent, if I have the experience, if I have the resources. Well, implicit in if is doubt. And the subconscious mind doesn't know what to do with doubt. So it just kind of cycles it through, you know, doubt, hope, and doubt normally wins. Okay. But if you convert that to a how question, instead of thinking, I wonder if I have, how am I going to make this work? How can I make this happen? And you plant that question in your subconscious mind, because implicit in how is the presumption that there is a way to make it happen. And the subconscious mind is really equipped to deal with how. You know, how am I going to, I've been wrestling with this problem all day. How am I going to solve it? The next morning in the shower, boom, it's there. It deals with the how question very effectively. Now, the other thing that the subconscious does for you is it helps you with emotions. Emotions are really messages from the subconscious mind. And my personal belief is the subconscious is our connection to a greater intelligence, a higher power, God, the universe, whatever phrase or term you want to use. And when we realize that and we tap into the subconscious, we're actually tapping into an intelligence much greater than ours. And there's an array of answers available to us that we would never come up with on our own. And so the emotions are messages from the subconscious, from this greater intelligence, if you will. And once we understand what the message is, then it's much easier to set the emotion aside and deal more objectively with whatever that situation is that we're facing. So to give you an example, we all experience doubt. You know, I'm no different. You know, things haven't changed just because I've learned this stuff. So if a new opportunity presents itself, my immediate reaction is excitement. And the second one is doubt. Okay. So it just happens. But I now understand that it's just an emotional reaction. It's an automatic response. We can't prevent it, but we don't have to nurture it either. So when that doubt surfaces, I say, wait a minute, let's set that aside. And the question I ask myself, and I've asked this of clients and always gotten the same answer: when in your life have you faced a situation in which you've had no background, no experience, and you failed to produce a positive result? And I can tell you, you know, when I ask that question of clients, their eyes just go off to the side and you can see the wheels turning. And then they look back at me and they'll say, never. I say, yeah. We always, no matter what the situation is, we find a way to deal with it. You talk to somebody who's gotten news that they're terminally ill, and they will have decided what they're going to do with the rest of their life, and they'll be comfortable with that. So even in the most dire sin, we can deal with whatever it is that we face. And we never fail to do that effectively. So why would this time be any different? And that's the process that I actually go through, is that I'll experience that doubt and I'll say, and because I've been doing this mentally for decades now, 30 years or more, it's an almost an automatic shift. It's like, oh, wait a minute, it's never been a problem in the past. Why is it going to be a problem now? And then I can move forward confidently. And so that's the other benefit of the subconscious mind, is you learn what the messages are from the emotions that you're experiencing, then you know how to deal with them a lot more quickly and a lot more effectively, how to set the emotion aside in exchange for action that's going to actually help you deal with the situation effectively.
Heidi just said that's an excellent message.
Well, thanks, Heidi.
Heidi, you're muted if you'd like to say anything.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, that's great. That's great information, Dale. I appreciate that.
Well, good. It's good to hear from you again. It's been way too long.
It has. It has.
Anybody can ask Dale questions at any time if you'd like. So feel free to unmute yourself and pipe on in. Dale, when you first started doing this, did you have like a morning routine or a daily routine that you would just kind of hand things over to your subconscious, or how did you become just a regular?
No, it started out very slowly, like I said, with the alarm clock thing. And then as I would apply it to other things, it just evolved, as most things do. Gradually you learn, you say, oh, maybe I could use that here. And then you try it there and it works. And you say, oh, well, maybe, and it just grows on and on. And like the emotion aspect of it, my awareness of that came well after my problem solving awareness of the subconscious mind's capabilities. So it's an evolution. You just, life's one big experiment. We just try things and then we glom onto what works and keep using it and grow from there, and often more subconsciously than consciously in that regard. But the subconscious mind is an extremely powerful tool. And, it's enabled me to help people in ways I would never have envisioned. And again, this is what causes me to believe that it's a connection to a greater intelligence. Give you an example. One of my earliest CFO clients was a petite woman, and she had, her son at that time was 9 years old. He was big and sturdy for his age. He also was suffering dyslexia and ADHD. So learning was extremely difficult for him. And she called me one day. Imagine calling your CPA with this question, okay? But anyway, she called me and said that they would spend 3 to 4 hours a night on his homework. And he would get so frustrated and so angry. She was afraid that if the anger erupted, she would be harmed physically. And she didn't know what to do. And just like that, it came to me and said, I know what it's like to get frustrated. I know what it's like to do things that I'm ill-equipped to handle. Plumbing happens to be one of them. And it's one of my big frustrations at home projects is plumbing. But anyway, I know what it's like. And I also know that when I experience that frustration at a certain level, that I just stop and I walk away. And almost as soon as I walk away and let that emotion subside, the solution surfaces. I know what I was doing wrong. I know what I need to do instead of what I was doing in order to get it to work. And so my mind taps into this, and I said, well, I know what it's like when I'm doing something, how frustrated I get when I'm doing something I'm ill-equipped to handle. And I know what it's like when I walk away and the emotions subside. So What my suggestion is going to be to you is that you break your lesson plans into 15-minute increments. And at the end of the 15 minutes, you ask him a question you're absolutely certain that he can answer correctly. And I knew the kid liked to play the drums. I said, then when he does, you give him 5 minutes to play the drums, bring him back and repeat the cycle. And she called me a couple of weeks later and she said, this is amazing. She said, not only isn't he getting frustrated anymore, his confidence is growing. Now, my wife and I weren't blessed with kids. I had no experience with ADHD. I had no experience with dyslexia. So where in the world did that solution come from? I tell you, it didn't come from me. It didn't come from me. There was a greater intelligence, a higher power, whatever language you want to use, that provided that information for me to be able to deal with that. And that's just one example. I could offer you countless examples of how things have come to mind, the solutions have come to me as I'm listening to the person express whatever it is that they're wrestling with. And the relief that they experience on the other side when I share with them what has come to mind. And we all have that. I mean, we're all connected already. It's just that we're not aware of, number one, aware that we are, or to what extent we are. And number two, we haven't been taught how to tap into it.
Dale, what's the most unusual or most challenging client that you've had or opportunity to help someone?
The most challenging client I had, that's going to be real easy. When I made that transition from corporate to CFO services, the situation that enabled me to do that was that I had actually applied for a job with a group of 7 entrepreneurs who had pooled their resources, some of their resources, and had bought different companies around the country. And we couldn't come to terms on salary, but I knew if I did it as an independent contractor with the deductions I could get for retirement plan and stuff like that, I could make the numbers work. So we went that route. One of the 7 was polar opposite. And this is neither good nor bad. It's not, I mean, he's right and I'm wrong, or vice versa. I assimilate information quickly, I decide quickly, and I'm quite willing to live with the consequences. His method was very deliberate. He'd research it, and then you'd think, you know, we'd go through it, we come to a conclusion. I'd think we were there and that he was ready to move ahead. And the next morning at 7:30, I get a phone call, what about? And we go through it all again, and we end up with the same conclusion. I think, okay, we're good now. And later in the afternoon, I get, Dale, what about? You know, and so we'd rehash it. And I just realized there was no alignment there, you know. So I, as much as possible, limited my exposure to that one principle. But yeah, if I'd have known that about the guy before, well, I mean, I'd still would have taken on the group because the rest of the group I worked very easily with, but he was a challenge. He was a challenge for me.
When you say a greater higher power, are you relating to people that are mediums that can talk to people that have passed away, et cetera?
You know, I don't have any experience with that. I am not, I won't say I don't have any skepticism, but I'm not nearly as skeptical as I was a long time ago. And this occurred during my CFO service timeframe. I had a client who was an energy type person. And she wanted to develop programs and take it to the corporate market. And so I was working with her on her marketing plan and, you know, how to express this and get, you know, corporate included or interested in it. And she had told me in previous meetings that she could see auras. And again, I don't ever doubt anybody, you know, I think, oh, that's bull. Because there's so many things that I've discovered over the years that I would never have imagined that, you know, I just don't do that anymore. But I still am somewhat skeptical. I do have doubts. Well, we're sitting at her kitchen table talking about her marketing program, and something she said triggered an idea, and I just boom, this is it. And I'm so excited. I think she's going to be excited. And she's sitting there and she's just staring into space. And I said, what, that doesn't make sense? And her eyes are up, and she says, there's a white light coming out of the top of your head. You're connected to the universe. And that's exactly what it felt like. As soon as she expressed it, that's what it felt like. It wasn't, again, I didn't feel like it was my great idea. It was an idea that came to me in that moment based on what I heard. And, so I'm even a lot less skeptical of people who say they are mediums, that they can, reach out to people on the other side. People have passed away. I have doubts. Yeah, but I don't allow them to get in my way or to deny the possibility.
Annette, I've noticed you've unmuted a couple of times. Do you have a question?
No, I just was going to make a comment that so much of what you said just aligns so beautifully with what neuro leadership guru David Rock says about cultivating aha moments. Certainly you have to learn how to go inside yourself and spend some time there to start to get familiar with those impulses and inclinations and intuitions. You're going to get further faster if you're in a positive or a good mood. So if you're in a bad mood, it's not a great time to look for an insight or to make a decision. So do something uplifting to help facilitate that. Spending some time alone, and so to be alone with your thoughts. And these are things, that, he tries to help leaders cultivate the space for this in the workplace. It's how do we help people do exactly what you're doing? And, in my experience as a coach, the hardest thing for a lot of people is to trust themselves because we're not taught that from birth. We're taught that it's the parents, and then it's the teachers, and then it's the ministers, and then it's the doctors and the lawyers and the politicians, and we're taught that everybody else except what's inside of ourselves and that greater intelligence has all the answers.
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting point. I appreciate those insights as well. I had not heard it in that language, and I like that. I really do. Thank you. But yeah, one of the things in my basic course, the first level course, is dealing with other people's perceptions, because that is something that, again, influences all of us. It did for me in the early years, not so much now, but it did then. But what I tell people in my class is that other people's perceptions only have relevance if they're going to help you get to your goal. Otherwise, just ignore it, So it just, everybody's entitled to their opinion. And I really do. What happens is when I hear advice that I don't think is relevant to what I'm trying to accomplish, that's really going to help me get there, I smile, I thank the person, because I truly believe that they're well-intentioned, regardless of how they may have expressed it. I think they're well-intentioned, but then I ignore it because it doesn't help me get to where I want to go. And the other thing that we're taught kind of indirectly is this jaundiced, jaded view of competition. I had an opportunity to talk to 10 and 13-year-old boys who were all in sports, and their dads had invited me in. And one of the questions I asked them was, who's your competitor? And they all had somebody that they were competing against or other teams, I go, no. Said your only competitor, your only true competitor is your previous personal best. So no matter how good any of us gets, me included, no matter how good any of us gets at what we do, There's always going to be somebody out there who's going to be better at some aspect of it than we are. I said, those people are not competitors. They're potential teachers.
Mhm.
And if we pay attention to what they're doing, or better yet, ask them for a little time to sit down with them and ask them, how do you accomplish this? We can
Mhm.
accelerate our improvement on our personal best. And one of the dads called me a couple of weeks after that program. And the time it took me to communicate this to you is about how long it took me to communicate it to the kids, okay? He called me 2 weeks later and said his 10-year-old son's greatest challenge was that he would compare himself to other kids. And because our natural tendency is to compare ourselves to people who are better in some way than we are, he would make that comparison and take a hit to his confidence. He said ever since that program, he'd see his son start down the path of that comparison and just like that, make the mental shift away from it. He said it happens so fast, it's almost magical. Yeah, it's a new way of thinking, a new way of looking at things. And that's all that we're talking about with this confidence training, whether you're doing it in your programs or any of the rest of you. You know, you're instilling confidence in the other person. And that makes it easier for them to make decisions. It makes them happier with the decisions they make. It just
Yeah.
generally enriches their lives. So, you know, it's a wonderful capability. And I've enjoyed life to a degree that I never imagined possible for over 30 years now. I just want more people to be able to have the kind of fun I'm having.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
fantastic. I want to honor everyone's time, and we're right at 8 o'clock. Does anybody have or a question or another comment for Dale and Dale? Do you have anything that you would like to say to wrap things up?
No, just, when you experience doubt, just ask yourself that question. When in my life have I faced a situation which I've had no background or experience and failed to produce a result? And if you're answering honestly, the answer will be never. You've always found a way to deal with it, whatever situation you faced.
Hmm.
And
That's a good one.
that'll put you right back on track.
I'll add that
Nicole
to
has
my
thanked you.
coaching toolbox.
Oh, good, good.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah.
Dale, when you
Nicole said thank
mentioned,
you too. Sorry,
Dale, when you mentioned your people's perception of you, it reminded me of the book that Jeff Henderson wrote called Know What You're For. And he asked two questions. One is, what do you want to be known for, being you personally? And then from your customer's point of view, what are you known for? Kind of brings the perception of what people think as well to
Yeah.
light.
Well, and then finding the gap between the two,
Yes,
you gain awareness that enables you to create greater alignment, which then makes your messages and what you do even more powerful.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming this morning and getting up and Dale, I really want to thank you for doing this. First of all, as you know, you bailed me out. And second of all, thank you for getting up so early in the morning and doing this. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah.
And
And I'm an early riser anyway, so there was no Herculean effort here. Really no effort at all.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much, Lisa, for doing this.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for being here. See everyone
Thank you,
soon, I
Dale.
hope. And if I don't see you before, have a happy holiday season.
And a
You as
Merry
well.
Christmas.
You mean we can say that now?
Yes, we can say that now.
Thanks so much. I'll see
Thanks,
everyone
Dale.
soon.
That was great.
Okay. Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.